on the 50th upload of KayCee's ViewSpot, we have a very special person before us, Mr. David Appasamy, Chairman of the Raising IBrows board. Mr. Appasamy is a multifaceted and multi-talented personality who wears many hats. He has over 30 years of experience in business management, sales marketing, brand management, advertising, e-commerce series, and digital strategies. He has previously been the Executive Vice President of CIFI Technologies and the Executive Director of Madura Microfinance. Thank you so much, Mr. Appasamy, for appearing in KayCee's ViewSpot. We are very proud and honored to have you appear for us.
Thank you, Kalpana. I'm very happy to be on KayCee's ViewSpot.
Let's talk about your journey to your present position. I know it's going to take it's a long journey, but can you tell us, can you tell the viewer briefly on how you reached here?
Yeah. To start with, I'd like to tell you this wasn't any kind of a planned progress.
Okay.
I'd hate to say it just happened. I'm sure it was God's will that I am where I am today. I started off wanting to be an Air Force pilot.
Oh.
That didn't happen.
Yeah.
Instead, I did hotel management,
Okay.
albeit very reluctantly, because my dad was going to retire and I had to do a degree that would ensure that I had a job.
Yeah.
Then I joined ITC Welcome Group as a management trainee, which was a very sought after position in those days.
Yeah.
And in about 18 months, I became a manager in Welcome Group, ITC Welcome Group.
Yeah.
And I chose to be in sales and marketing because that's the field that I enjoyed working in, although my degree was in hotel management.
Yeah. Where were you posted?
I was posted in Bombay.
Okay.
In the beginning, I was overseeing sales at the hotel in Aurangabad.
Yeah.
Then I joined the regional marketing office in Bombay and went on to become sales manager of the ITC hotel in Bombay, which was a Sea Rock Sheraton in its glory days, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I'd like to believe I contributed to that glory. This was, in 1980 or so.
Yeah.
That I went to Bombay and I was there till 88, and when I left Bombay, I left when I was sales manager of Sea Rock Sheraton.
Okay.
And I moved to Madras and joined advertising with Mudra Communications, Mudra DDD combined, so to speak. And I rose in Mudra to become general manager there, and I was sent to the IIM Ahmedabad by the company, which was a watershed in my professional career. I did the MEP, which is the equivalent of the MBA, for practicing managers. And I came back and built up the business at Mudra in Chennai to something like 35 crores in those days, which was pretty large. And then I moved on to join a client, which was CIFI Technologies. I joined them as general manager and grew within the company to become executive vice president. And I then left to run a microfinance company as executive director. I ran the company for 2 years. But most of those 2 years was marred by the microfinance crisis, so it was very tough going, and I eventually decided to move on because it didn't look like the industry was going anywhere at that time. So moved on to consult, and I'm now with Raising IBrows, which is a specialist in terms of audience engagement, primarily online. And I'm very happy to be here because my first love is the internet.
Okay, so the Air Force's loss is the private sector's gain. Yeah. And let's talk about your stint as Executive Vice President of CIFI Technologies. What would you say were your experiences there, and what have you learned?
Okay, before we go there, I'd just like to comment on your Air Force's loss as private sector's gain. I went to Delhi to join ITC, and that's where I met my wife Abha.
Okay.
And we eventually got married, and we have a lovely daughter, Chitra, and we have a son, Siddharth. And if I joined the Air Force, that wouldn't have happened.
Okay.
So I'm very happy that this did happen. But CIFI, I joined CIFI as General Manager Corporate Communications. I went on to handle, to oversee all of marketing, as well as corporate communications and investor relations. So when I left the company, I was overseeing all of these areas. And the experience was extraordinary in many ways because CIFI was a company at the cutting edge of information and communication technologies So I had wide exposure to it.
Yeah.
So what most people find quite esoteric today, I am very familiar with because it was part of my daily life, whether it's to do with data centers, whether it's to do with high-end security firewalls, whether it's to do with virtual private networks, the internet itself, the global underpinning of the internet, the root servers, all of these are some things that I'm very familiar with and which I'm very grateful for because today those things do become very important. It also enabled me to hone my skills in terms of marketing, in terms of strategies for a company which was in high-end technology services. And another part of my job I really enjoyed was the investor relations. I used to travel to the US every 3 months after the quarter results and meet investment funds in the US, in primarily New York, Boston and San Francisco, make presentations to them, meet analysts. It was extraordinary exposure. I also used to handle public relations in the sense that I used to work with the Confederation of Indian Industry. I was part of the panel that put together the broadband recommendation to the Indian government. I used to work with the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry. I was spearheading the e-commerce task force for a number of years at FICCI as it is known. I was part of NASCOM. Then I was part of the International Chamber of Commerce. And a very active member of the International Chamber of Commerce. And I was on the business action in support of the Information Society, their BASIS initiative. And as such, I represented global business at the World Summit on the Information Society in Tunis in 2005 and been part of the Internet Governance Forum thereafter from 2006 onwards, speaking at the conference in Athens where I was one of the closing speakers representing global business. I spoke at Rio de Janeiro on the main panel with regard to diversity. I was talking about India and the diversity that we have and how the internet brings it all together in some ways. I also spoke at 2 workshops. I was a moderator at a workshop in Hyderabad in 2008 and so on. So it was incredible exposure in terms of global fora, global policy formulation where the internet is concerned and a chance to bring the business perspective at these fora.
It's very, very impressive what you just told us.
But the part that I really was very kicked about is that I was one of 40 advisors to the Secretary General of the United Nations. It was called a multi-stakeholder advisory group to the UN Secretary General on Internet Governance. And I was one of them for 2 years.
So did you make any recommendations to the UN and was this accepted?
Yes, it was to do with the holding of the Internet Governance Forum every year and the topics that would be discussed, how the panels would be formed, and how it would be entirely conducted. That was the contribution of the multi-stakeholder advisory group.
This is really very impressive. Now, what strikes me is that I'm a little curious about this. You said you've done your MBA, equivalent of an MBA, but I think you must be having some engineering background to understand the internet and the underpinning of the whole thing, how it works.
That's the best part. I have a degree in hotel management. I am not an engineer. I don't have a technical background. But
you still understand the whole...
Yes, you need to understand the concepts and how it works. What a virtual private network is. Conceptually, if you understand how it works, that's all you need because you're never going to have to go and repair it yourself or configure it yourself. It's like driving a car. You needn't necessarily know how the fuel injection works, but you drive the car anyway. So,
now coming to the microfinance bit that that was your own setup?
No. Madura Microfinance was originally part of the Bank of Madura. Then it became a separate organization in itself, initially as a trust and later on as a not-for-profit company registered by the Government of India. And I was very happy to be able to serve there because I saw it as a kind of congruence of my 2 interests. Throughout my career, I've had a track in the corporate arena, so to speak, where I worked with different companies, and I've had a parallel track with regard to socially responsible initiatives. For example, when I was working at City,
Yeah.
I also worked for 14 years
Yeah.
with Asha Niketan, which is a home for the mentally handicapped.
Okay.
I initially started as a volunteer who was helping them in various ways. Then they invited me onto the governing council, and I was a governing council member for a number of years. And for the last 7 years, I was the chairman of the governing council.
Okay.
So I also used to oversee Kalpana, which was City's social responsibility initiative, where we used to educate youth at risk with computer skills, spoken English, personality development and grooming, and all of that to ensure that they had jobs and services such as desktop publishing, BPOs, and so on.
So you had sort of a CSR before the concept arose in India, corporate social responsibility.
Yes, absolutely. For many, many, many years.
Yeah.
In 1989, when my father passed away, family members, mostly my cousins, decided that they would nominate me to the managing trustee of the Appasamy Trust, which is a trust founded by my great-grandfather. And we do work in about 213 villages around Tirunelveli. And a lot of very good work in women's empowerment. We also have self-help groups, about 1,200 of them. And women are able to generate their own income to stabilize the family's income and so on and so forth. So I've been doing that since 1989, which is a very long time. So being socially responsible was very much part of the family, so to speak. And I have been doing it for a long, long while. Even today, I work with Vidyarambam, which is an NGO which focuses on early intervention in education for rural children. I work with Sevalaya, which runs a school and an old age home. I'm one of their advisors. And I'm the secretary of Roofs for the Roofless, which runs a community college in Karanai village, about 50 kilometers from here. And I'm still the managing trustee of the Appasamy Trust.
Okay. Does that Vidyodia school and all, do you have any connection with them? Because my mother studied there, and so I obviously wanted to know.
Oh, that's wonderful to know. Vidyodia was founded by my grandmother as a society. And the society runs 2 schools today. And there are members of the family on the board on the governing body of Vidyodia. And at some point I hope to be able to serve there as well.
Okay. So now this, this present position as chairperson or chairman of Raising Eyebrows, I like the play on words. How have you been able to raise eyebrows here? And what do you do? And what is the presence of Raising Eyebrows in India and abroad?
Raising Eyebrows is what we call audience engagement specialist. Today in a connected world, we have multiple opportunities for engaging with various audiences, whether it's your customers, prospects, stakeholders, whoever it is. And companies do it in different ways. But in a connected world, you can do it at every point of interface. It could be on the laptop, it could be on the phone, it could be on an iPad. There are multiple opportunities available. And we at Raising Eyebrows are specialists in coming up with applications for those kind of engagements. We build responsive websites. These are websites that, when they download, will configure themselves in terms of design and interface, depending on the size of the screen you are downloading from. So the same website, when you download it from a laptop, it will be the full website, but if you download it from your smartphone, it will reconfigure itself for easy use on the smartphone.
So it's all automatic?
Yes. That's why it's called a responsive website. We design and develop responsive websites, and of course mobile applications and the whole gamut of applications which can be to do with contests online, all that sort of thing. We also do search engine optimization. We do social media marketing, digital marketing, anything that happens online. We're also brand specialists in terms of brand identity, as well as offline advertising as well. So we are fairly full service, but at the core is our expertise when it comes to digital interface. We are also experts in terms of user experience. Now, user experience is a very new field. There are only about 3,600 certified user experience experts in the world.
What does it mean? I mean, I know.
I'll come to that. There are only 3,600 user experience experts in the world certified. We have 3 of them. Now, today, to give you an example of what it involves, if you look at Apple, why are their phones or their iPads so highly sought after? Because the user interface is so beautifully designed and it's so intuitive. they're the best when it comes to user interface. Similarly, as many companies move applications to the cloud or offer services both to enterprise and consumers online, the quality of that interface will determine how successful they are.
Okay.
That's the UX design, and we're experts in that.
Okay.
So we have large companies, IT companies for example, that are now offering services on the cloud, who come to us on their applications. They will develop their own applications, which are technologically very sound, functionally very sound, but we develop the UX, the user interface for them.
Okay. Is it an Indian company? Or,
yes, we're an Indian company. We're registered here. We have offices in Chennai, we have offices in Bangalore, Bombay, we have an office in London, and a referral office in Milan.
Okay, thank you. Let's come to your, blogspot part of it. When people Google your name, they'll get almost 50,000 results. I tried it out before coming here. And they'll find that you've got a blogspot called Random Thoughts of a World Citizen, where you've written about a wide variety of subjects. I've noticed you started this blog in 2006, and the last entry, if I'm correct, is December 2014.
13.
Sorry, December 2013. I would recommend that all who are interested in reading should go through your blogspot. How do you find the time to write them, and how do you decide on what to write about?
I started the blog when a friend insisted I start on it because he felt that I could write well. In fact, that was the first post.
Okay.
I wrote about the fact that he helped me write it.
Okay.
And it started.
Yeah.
I find a blog is a very lovely way of being able to express yourself on various subjects. Whether it comes to concern with civil society, whether it comes to do with government, anything at all. I also found it was very, very useful to keep Abha and my children updated on which part of the world I was in and what I was doing.
Okay.
So combined my passion for photography along with the blog on all my travels. So there will be extensive travelogues in terms of, if I'm in Boston, interesting snippets to what I did. I captured pictures from the various places I went to and all of that. So the family could follow what I was doing, although they weren't with me. And that was very useful when I used to travel to the US for SIFI in investor relations. I have pictures on the blog of New York, Boston and San Francisco, which no tourist will ever get. Because they're often taken from the conference rooms of the investor firms that I went to. On the 60th floor overlooking Central Park, for example. Or overlooking the East River. Or overlooking San Francisco Bay and things like that. So it's a very valuable record of those years in terms of the vistas I was exposed to. So the blog was very useful in that sense too.
I will definitely be going through it when I go back. And as you mentioned, you traveled extensively. How have your travels maybe widened your perspective on world issues and things like that?
Yes. Travel always does widen one's perspective because the more exposure you have, the more you become open to new ideas, new ways of doing things, new ways of thinking and so on. For example, I've lived in Bombay and it has all the ills of a densely populated city. And of course now I'm in Chennai and Chennai is getting quite densely populated as well. In June of 2012, I spoke at the Asia Pacific Regional Internet Governance Forum in Tokyo. And this was my second visit to Tokyo. But it was, some 15 years after the previous visit. And I went in with eyes wide open because of my extensive travel experience. I went to see, in a sense, what they were doing in terms of big city management. And it was such an eye-opener. The way that city was being managed in such an orderly, such a disciplined way, and the way they were using technology to be able to monitor and manage the city. It was quite amazing. To give you an example, we were told about a program that was being used to detect traffic movement when it rains, and the sensors were along with windshield wipers.
Oh, okay.
So you knew how many cars were moving in the rain
Yeah.
and the pattern thereof.
Yeah.
I mean, who would ever think of things like that? But it's innovation that makes it possible.
Yeah.
And things like that, which were quite astonishing, that we were exposed to when we were there.
As the viewer can see, you are a very articulate person, and you've also been invited by a lot of workshops and seminars to be their keynote speaker and motivational speaker. How do you do it? Do you tell them about your experiences? How do you motivate others?
I think the key is to first understand the audience.
Yeah.
So even before you go there,
Yeah.
you check with the people who've invited you as to what the audience comprises of.
Yeah.
Are these ladies and gentlemen from diverse locations? Is it multicultural, or is it from a single location?
Yeah.
What are their expectations?
Yeah.
What need are they trying to address?
Yeah.
What is their level of education?
Yeah.
What is their background experience, and so on. So you get a gestalt in terms of what the audience is,
Yeah.
in terms of their mindset.
Okay.
And then you look at, to address that mindset, and particularly address the need that has been articulated to you, what are the kind of inputs that you can share with them for them to change their perspectives to meet the need,
Okay.
so to speak. It could be experiences,
Yeah.
it could be examples, it could be case studies, it could be it could be just about anything that would bring a light to them,
Okay.
the perspective you want to set in their minds.
I think there are lots to talk about, but my battery is running out. Normally I end with, what would you like to say to anyone on anything that comes to your mind?
There are two things that I will end with in today's world,
Yeah.
and I'm prompted to say that because today you have rapidly eroding integrity in society.
Yeah.
You have rapidly eroding ethical standards,
Yeah.
and you have therefore a downgrading of society as a unit, about an interlinked group of people. So I would urge you first and foremost to be true to yourself,
Okay.
and also to be a person of integrity that others can respect and look up to and depend upon.
Yeah.
I think if we do this, we'll be a far better society.
Thank you so much, Mr. Appasamy, for taking time off your valuable schedule and talking to KayCee's
My
viewers.
pleasure. Thank you.